Hey, welcome to our weekly Stafford History Show. This week we're going to take a little canoe trip down the Furnace Brook. So now we're going to start actually at New City Pond. This is a picture of New City Pond at the spillway. We haven't gone over the spillway yet because I thought you'd get all of it. So we're just going to look at it. This picture was taken probably about now, probably 20 years ago when it was cold. Someone might tell me where the name New City came from. I've heard stories, but I haven't heard one I believe yet. If we look at the dam, which is rather long, but this is the bottom side, so to speak, but not very tall. You can see the spillway right there where the red dot is. There's another picture of the spillway, perhaps a better one. This is a hole in the bottom of the dam, which I assume would be used to drain the water, but it's a little strange. And I know that we took a rocky trip down, but we're turning around in our canoe and looking upstream. This is the little stream called New City Brook that comes out of New City Pond in New City. Now here are a bundle of stones in the middle of the brook. It doesn't look natural, and therefore I assume it's man-made. If we look to the right here, we see some wood that was obviously man-made. I would guess that is part of the gate or sluiceway that took water from a dam, a smaller dam that was here, and diverted water over to the mill, as all ponds were built for mills. Here's another look at the sluiceway from that point we're just at going down, actually not going downstream. We diverted the water in the little canal, the raceway, to the mill. And this is one of the pictures of the mill. One of the things, of course, the mills in Stafford used water for was to wash the wool. The brook itself is outside right here, and this is the downside of the mill, which is now vacant. But if you go by it, you will see the more modern powerhouse, which is a great big steam boiler, and there are windows there. Floating along downstream is hard to see, but we meet on New City Brook before we get to Stafford Pond. We see another large, tall dam. You can see the stone perhaps right here. But there's no water behind it. It's broken, and the brook goes through it. Now that supposes, of course, as every dam was built for a mill, there would have to be a mill close by. Here's another picture of the downside of the dam, the same dam. Now if we go farther downstream and look back up, the New City Road is up here, and the dam is back in here. This is the site. I would guess that the mill is back in there. But we're going to get out of our canoe and walk back to that red dot. And we're still walking back to it, and we're going back in here. You almost see a wall there. And here you see a foundation that we may presume was a mill. And nothing was left there. A strange little picture of Stafford Lake, because we have come into the southern part of the lake on New City Brook. And this is Stafford Lake after it was dammed up. This is Staffordville Dam on a drier day. Here it is on a March day or April day like today, where there's much more water, at least in those old days, way back in the 70s. And of course we've gone over some of this before on Glenville Dam, but this is the gate, and this is the dam on the it's the north side, but the inside, this is the pond, and this is the gate. And the gate goes up and down here, and water goes through at present, well, it did, I don't know about right this minute, but back in the 60s, the water went through a pipe. And this is a device with a crank geared so that you turn the crank there and open the gate, the water would go through. All this has been changed back in the 90s. And I'm not sure what it looks like at present, but we were right here. And that's the spillway we saw. And this is often called the powerhouse. And this is just attached to the dam. And the pipe would be opened here, and in here, down here, would be the pipe that goes to the factory. Printed Circuit owned this at one time. I don't know, it's TTM now, but way back in the 19th century, this was the Hope Woolen Mill. And I just show you part of the old 19th century mill here. Inside, back then, you get a good look at how the mill operated. You can see a lot of pulleys overhead. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all over the mill. And these were run on belts. You can see one belt right here. And these belts were attached to another pulley, which went down to the water wheel. And the water wheel turned all of these pulleys. And they had what I'll call a clutch, somewhat like your lawnmower clutch, to operate each individual pulley separately. And they did that by tightening the belts by pulling on the pulley. This is inside the old Schwander's button shop, or Hope Woolen Mill. Back in the 60s and prior, when we had electricity, the water turbine, Bradway water turbine, ran a generator. This is the generator. Generated electricity, and many of the machines when Schwander had a button shop were run on electricity in the early 19th century. This is a picture of the water turbine. It's really nothing but a big tank. You can't really see anything here. This is the generator, the shaft that drives the generator, generate electricity. This is very important. This is the automatic regulator. It regulated the speed. These two balls here would act on centrifugal force, and as the speed, water pressure increased, these balls would go outward with centrifugal force and operate a lever which would control the gates, tiny gates inside the water wheel, and therefore give a more constant speed. In our canoe we went downstream to, this is Staffordville, the village. This is the old, let's see, I think it was a Methodist church at one time, but became the community center. Now it's not there, nor is this building, and there's merely the bell from this old church at that site. This is Colburn Road, so we're at the corner of Colburn and Wales Road, or East Main Street. This is Route 19 coming into Staffordville. This building is no longer here. Joe Deck built a house on this property. This is torn down. This is the powerhouse, similar to the one, although much larger, that we saw at Staffordville Dam. And there was a mill shortly below this. Now that obviously assumes there had to be a dam to dam up water. And if you go down Colburn Road, there's a bridge here, and look over the side, you can see almost what was a foundation of a dam, and there was a pond there. And if you look at this spot, there's a strange hump in the ground that looks a little unnatural, and that was where the water pipe came into this powerhouse. Inside the powerhouse, this is a poor picture, sorry about that, but you can see a steering wheel right here with a shaft, and this went down to a valve which regulated the water going into the mill. That was the old, I believe, Garland mill at that spot. But going down a little farther, well, we're on Furnace Brook now. I'm sorry to mention that Furnace Brook starts at Staffordville Lake. So when we put our canoe in at the spillway on Staffordville Lake, we were then in Furnace Brook. And now we've canoed all the way down to Penny School Road. And we get out of our canoe to see a strange foundation here, which looks like it was a mill at one time. But we haven't found the dam that went with this particular mill. This may just have been a small sawmill. Another picture of the same site. Another picture of that same site. This is probably the waterway, sluiceway, river that went into this mill, sawmill. Another picture, foundation of the same. Now it doesn't, this, as I say, was many years ago in the 60s or early 70s when it hadn't filled in with dirt. Ponds, if left their own devices, will usually disappear and fill with silt. And you can see that this one, if you go by on Route 19 here, has almost disappeared. This is the spillway, hydro pond, and this is Furnace Brook again, coming out. This, hard to see, is the gate right here. And of course, the gate controls the water going into, in this case, it's a canal, a long canal. It goes all the way to that some people call Hyattville Mill present time, but at one time was a woolen mill known as the Phoenix Woolen Mill. Another long canal going across, I believe that's, well, Hyattville, it must be Hyattville Road. Inside this mill, which is one of the few mills, the only mill left that I can think of that has some wooden structure. Most of our wooden mills burned down. This is, I think, stone partly and wood on top. This inside, we see some of the machines that are used for the wool. Here again, we see the pulleys on the wall, as we saw Shawn's Button Shop that ran many of the machines. This, we still see some wool, and this was probably a carding machine. It's hard to tell from this picture. You can see the belts and pulleys that ran the machine. Carding was the process of straightening the wool into straight fibers. And it came out in a sheet, and then the sheet was cut into narrow strips and then twisted to make string, yarn, thread.